Welcome in everyone, this is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and today we're going to be taking a look at a black-white vampire deck that is going to be surviving the upcoming rotation on October 5th. Before we jump into that though, just want to make sure everyone knows about our upcoming tournaments. Of course, rotation happens on October 5th when Guilds of Ravnica comes out. That's going to remove Kaladesh, Aether Revolt, Amonkhet, and Hour of Devastation from standard Pauper legality. And then our first Youth Standard Pauper tournament that is going to take place after rotation will be on October 13th over at Minikyu in Mililani. Michael Ulip will be running that event, the advisor for the August Aaron's Magic Club. And then the next weekend, October 21st, there will be Youth Standard Pauper over at Westside Comics and Games, and I will be running that event. And those are going to be the first two opportunities that you'll have to test out your post-rotation standard Pauper decks. And then, of course, December 1st will be our Youth Championship Scholarship Tournament. We'll be giving away $500 in scholarship to first place and $250 in scholarship to second place. And the format for that tournament will be the same. Guilds of Ravnica will be the most recent set in legality. And we'll have many more tournaments that have not yet been scheduled between now and December 1st, but you're in the right place to kind of start getting a jump on this new format. All right, so we got black-white vampires here. This is a deck that will completely survive rotation. It is not looking like it will get very many tools in the new set, but very few cards will be leaving that this deck wants. So the fact that other decks will be getting weaker upon rotation means that this deck will probably be a little bit stronger. Alright, so you can, or as always, rather, you can check out that text version of the deck in the comment section, or, excuse me, in the description of this video. But for now, we're going to be taking a look over here on Magic Online. Basically, this is an aggro deck. The curve is a little bit higher than the usual aggro deck. Usually, the aggro decks kind of start their curve on 1 and then work their way up. The cheapest creature in this deck costs 2, but we've got 3 really solid 2-drops. Bishop Soldier, 2-mana 2/2 lifelink vampire. Martyr of Dusk, 2-mana 2/1 vampire that when it dies you make a 1/1 vampire token with lifelink. And then Dusk Legion Zealot, a 2-mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield you draw a card and you lose a life, and of course it is a vampire. So we've got these early drop vampires. Lifelink is a recurring keyword here on our early creatures. Bishop Soldier itself has lifelink. The token that Martyr of Dusk leaves behind has lifelink. So this deck is, even though it starts later than the other aggro decks, it should be able to do a good job of racing them thanks to lifelink. And then, of course, Dusk Legion Zealot is good at making sure that you have gas later in the game. Alright. So moving up the curve, we've got Skymarch Bloodletter, 3-mana 2/2 flying. When it enters the battlefield, they lose a life and you gain 1 life. And then Voracious Vampire, 3-mana 2/2 with Menace. Enters the battlefield, target vampire you control gets +1/+1 and gains Menace until end of turn. So both of these guys have some sort of evasion, flying, and Menace. So on their own, they're pretty good at pushing through damage. Bloodletter gets some damage in when it enters the battlefield. Voracious Vampire also gets some damage in by giving, hopefully, one of your 2-drops that you played on turn 2, +1/+1 and Menace. So both of these are kind of good at pushing in the damage kind of in the middle of your curve here. And then Sanguine Glorifier, 4-mana 3/3. Decent stats for a 4-mana creature. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on another target vampire you control. So, we see these effects. We start our curve with decent 2-drops. Our 3-drops are kind of meant to start pressuring them. And then our 4-drop makes whatever creatures that we already have in play slightly bigger. And then, of course, probably the biggest incentive to be playing the Vampire Tribe here is Anointed Deacon, 5-mana 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target vampire get +2/+0 until end of turn. So as we work our way up our curve, all of the vampires that we're going to be playing are going to be helping our other vampires. So Anointed Deacon and Sanguine Glorifier are both going to be great especially if you are bumping up something like a bishop soldier or a lifelinking token. Or, you know, just a creature with evasion to start just getting the race on. So we've got a decent curve. It is slightly higher than a curve that you would see in a usual aggro deck. So we have a bunch of 1 mana combat tricks and equipment to kind of help fill the pockets in our curve. It's an aggro deck. We want to be using our mana efficiently, so having a bunch of 1 mana mana sinks are going to be good. Moment of Triumph, you know, allows you to make attacks. You know, you can attack into bigger creatures and then save your guy in combat. Also swings the life total, so against other aggro decks, you'll be able to stay in the race. And then Skullduggery, also a great combat trick. Sometimes you can functionally give your creature +2/+2 by giving it +1/+1, and then whatever it's in combat with -1/-1. Or, you know, you can just pump up your creature and then kill their 1 toughness creature, even if it's not in combat with you. So Skullduggery, you know, it's just a great 1 mana combat trick. And then Short Sword here, again, like, we're playing creatures with evasion or creatures with lifelink that, or, you know, cantripping creatures that are just so happen to have a body and give us back a card. So we have lots of good homes to put Short Sword on, right? Putting it on a lifelinker is obviously great. Putting it on a evasive creature is obviously great. And it kind of just recurs around this theme of making our vampires bigger. And most importantly, it is a 1 mana sink, so if for whatever reason our curve is a little bit clunky, maybe we drew too many 2-drops, or maybe, you know, if we don't have a Sanguine Glorifier to play on turn 3, but we have, you know, a 2-drop to play, then we can play Short Sword and equip it, you know. So Short Sword is just kind of like a nice cushion to help make sure that we're using our mana efficiently throughout the game. So this deck, we have 23 lands because we're playing 4 4-drops and 4 5-drops. We don't really have too much other smoothing. I guess you can think of Dusk Legion Zealot as smoothing, but we do want to make sure that we get to our 5-drop here. But other than that, you know, this is just a pretty solid aggro deck. It goes a little bit bigger than the aggro decks we're used to seeing. But I think that this will definitely be a contender moving forward. Here in the sideboard, against other aggro decks, we have, you know, a couple more cheap combat tricks. Skullduggery, very good against a deck full of 1 toughness creatures. Moment of Triumph, you know, you cast this on a lifelinking creature in combat, you gain 2 life from casting it, and then you gain 2 more life from the lifelinking creature dealing the damage. So we got this to bring in against other aggro decks. Queen's Commission, also very good against other aggro decks. Be wary of Dual Shot. Right, Dual Shot is a 1 mana answer to your 3 mana threat. But besides Dual Shot and Radiant Lightning, Queen's Commission is very solid. If they are playing a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, then Queen's Commission just puts out a bunch of blockers that kind of stonewall their 1 toughness creatures. And if it comes down to a race, then having lifelinking creatures is a great way to just end up ahead in the race. You've got tons of ways to pump up your vampires. Short Sword, our pump spells, Sanguine Glorifier, and then of course Anointed Deacon as well. I was thinking about having this in the main deck, but you know, I kind of like having the evasive creatures here in the main deck. But I could very well be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. We are playing 2 Murders in the main deck. Murder is just too good not to play, and then another one in the board. As I said, our deck is kind of clunky, so we don't want to lean too hard on 3 mana removal. Yes, it can kill anything, but there are going to be some decks that are playing mostly 2-drops that you want to kill, and then Murder is just pretty ineffective. So we don't want to play too many. And then we have our package here against Control. Legion Conquistador, of course, once the first one resolves, you essentially draw 3 cards, which is very good against the control decks that are trying to out-card advantage you with their removal. And then Duress, of course, is great against the control decks. You can take their draw spells, you can take their soul salvages, you can take their removal or counter spells. Whatever the best spell in their hand is, Duress is going to take it. So that is it for Black-White Vampires. Of course, all of these cards are going to be surviving rotation. When Guilds of Ravnica comes out, we do have the full spoilers out, so you know, we know exactly what is going to be in the set. In terms of standard Pauper, Black-White Vampires is not going to be getting anything. Unfortunately, the Black-White Guild is not featured in Guilds of Ravnica. We have to wait for the next set, Ravnica Allegiance, which I believe comes out in January or February. I need to check the exact date on that. But Ravnica Allegiance comes out in the winter, and it will be featuring the Black-White Guild, which is called Orzhov. The Blue-Black Guild does have some vampires in it, although unfortunately none of the vampires printed in the Blue-Black Guild are at common rarity. There is one guy here that I think is going to be very good in this deck, even though it is not a vampire. And this is actually my pick for most impactful card on the standard Pauper format in the entire set. We've got Healer's Hawk. So it's a 1-mana 1/1 flying lifelink, and this just kind of fits straight into the plan of this deck, right? We want to be racing the other aggro decks. We want to be hitting them, and we want to be gaining life so that they can't race us. And Healer's Hawk just kind of does all of that. I think Healer's Hawk is going to be kind of like a mainstay in any kind of white aggressive deck moving forward, in the same way that Sacred Cat was prior to it rotating out. So, I'm not sure what you would cut from the deck to slot in the Healer's Hawk, but it goes, it would go right here in the curve. It wears Short Sword really well. Unfortunately, it doesn't get pumped by any of your other pump effects, but it just fixes kind of the curve issue that the deck has, and I think it fits right in with the game plan of wanting to be an aggressive deck, but using lifelink to kind of keep priority with the other aggro decks that might be lower to the ground than you. So even though it's not a vampire, I do think Healer's Hawk is going to potentially find a home in this deck. I'm not sure what other cards from the set are going to make it in. If you see any that you think should be included in this list, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to, I might need to get some encouragement to take a second look at some cards. But I think this is going to be a very solid deck moving forward. Would love to know what you think, and if you have a chance to try it out, let me know. Thank you for stopping by. Of course, watching this video is a great way to support what we do here. If you want to support us even more, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can ring the bell to make sure that you get all notifications when we release new standard Pauper content. And if you want to support us even more, you love the mission that we have to spread magic, to make it as accessible as possible, especially to the youth here on Oahu and hopefully around the world, please consider becoming a patron subscriber. You choose how much you feel you want to subscribe, and then each month you will be donating that much to our cause. All the tournaments we run, whether they are the smaller monthly tournaments or the hopefully twice yearly youth scholarship tournaments that we run, it all comes straight from the Patreon account. So if you want to support us, please consider becoming a patron subscriber. And of course, there are some sweet perks here up at the top of if you become a gold contributor. All right, so thank you for stopping by. Let us know what you think about the spoilers. Let us know what you think about the deck, and I will catch you next time. Peace.